So now we will be looking at how to write the methodology chapter. So you have already written your introduction and literature review chapters. Next chapter, chapter 3, that's about methodology. What should come in this chapter? So this is not going to be a very long chapter. If you think about your chapters, your longer chapters will be the literature review chapter, about 20 pages, and then your results chapter, another 20 pages. The methodology chapter will be somewhere in between 8 to 10 pages. So in this chapter, I would like to see, first of all, your choice of the research approach. So when we say research approach, the basic choice you are making is that is your empirical study going to be a qualitative study or a quantitative study? So qualitative approach or quantitative approach. As we will see in the assessment criteria, the most important thing when we are assessing your thesis is that you justify your choices. Whatever choice you make, you need to tell us why that is the suitable choice for answering your research questions. I sometimes have students ask me, should I do qualitative or quantitative, right? It all depends on what you are after, what you are looking for, what is your research question. Then the research context. Perhaps I should go through these in the order. I think you are able to see that very well. I have this Zoom in front of me. So we talked about the research approach. What is your choice? Qualitative, quantitative. Under qualitative, as we will see in the next session, there are also research methods. So is it a case study method that you will be applying? Is it an action research that is also qualitative approach? Is it ethnography, meaning that you just go to the research context and you observe your objects that you are studying? So there can be also specific research method, research strategy that you are applying under qualitative and quantitative. So if you know those, you should also describe them under the research approach. Now, what do we understand from the research context? The research context is where you will do the empirical study. So if, for example, Muntaser in his research will look into exporting opportunities of education in the United Arab Emirates, well, the research context is United Arab Emirates, right? So he should be telling a bit about the setting of United Arab Emirates. So remember, we had two worlds, the practical world and the academic theoretical world. The literature review chapter, that's more about the theoretical world. The practical world, so the research context belongs to the practical world. Perhaps you may want to also say something about Finnish education, right? You want to tell us about, so you are aiming to export Finnish education to the United Arab Emirates. So Finnish education is also part of your research context. So that could also be under the research context. Of course, you will be telling very briefly about the context in the introduction chapter, but not in detail. Remember, the introduction chapter is the chapter that you inspire the reader to read further. So you don't reveal all the secrets in that chapter. This is, if you want to tell about, let's say, for example, Yao Ming, he will be doing his study in the company where he's working at. So if it is allowed by confidentiality restrictions, if the company managers allow him to share the information, he would be telling about his company under the research context. or it could be an industry, it could be a country as United Arab Emirates, depending on what you are studying. What is the aim, purpose of the study? So what is the context of that study? So that would be under the research context. Now, the methodology chapter is the chapter that you are telling us about how you will do the empirical study. And when we say empirical study, we are simply talking about two things: data collection and data analysis. So I would like to see two sections, one on data collection and the other one on data analysis. So tell us the whole story, how you collected the data. So if you are doing a qualitative research, most probably your main method for collecting data is interviews. So in this chapter, you should be sharing, also supporting your choices with methodology literature. So this is also a chapter that I would like to see citations, but not citations from the literature of your topic, but from the methodology literature. For example, Elina shared some good literature that was unfortunately in Finnish language, and also in the English language, there is a lot of literature on methodologies. So how do we collect data with interviews? Now, if you think about the process, there you would be first of all telling about whom you interviewed, right? Who were the persons that you interviewed? How did you choose them? Why did you choose those people? So why you chose those people? It was a choice, right? Let's say I am doing my research and I interview here Hanna Muntasar and Yao Ming. Why them? Why not somebody else? Were they the right people to give me the right answers for my research questions? You need to convince the reader that they were the right people and you were able to get the right answers for your research questions. So if I'm doing some research about understanding the factors behind the competitiveness of Finland, I should not interview Yao Ming. He will not be the right person to tell me about the competitiveness of Finland. If anybody in the room, Hanna would be the best choice, right? But if I'm doing a research about the United Arab Emirates, then perhaps Muntasar would be the right choice. Similarly, something about China, Yao Ming would be the right choice given the limitation. I cannot go to China and interview Xi Jinping, right? The president of China. So, we have our restrictions, limitations that would give me much more insights if I were to interview the president of China, but that's not possible. So we should tell that as a limitation in our discussion chapter later on, but we should here justify our choices. So who did we interview? That's one. How many interviews we did? Interview questions. So remember, interview questions should be presented, not the answers, in the appendix. So is it appendix 1, appendix 2, depending on how many you have, you should present the interview questions if you do a qualitative research. In other things about the interviews, you could have a table. First of all, when you do the interviews, ask the interviewees if you can share their names with the audience, with the readers. So a table about the names of the names and titles of the interviewees. How long did the interviews take place? When did they take place? So be specific to tell about these. And then what was the language of the interviews? Why? Let's say Hanna is interviewing some person in Finland, a Finn. Naturally, the language of the interview would be Finnish. So if that is the case, why Finnish? Why not English? That should be also written. As you will see, we are not only assessing what you do, but we are also assessing what you write. Yes, Anna.
If I have the case that I have, because I might have one Dutch and then the Finnish. Can I do the Finnish one in Finnish and then the Dutch one in English?
Exactly.
That
exactly. So the question is, Hanna will interview one Finn and one Dutch.
One Dutch, yeah.
Can she do the interview with the Finn in Finnish and the interview with the Dutch in English? Yes, of course. So the language here should not be the same. It should be the language that will give you the deepest insights. If you were to do the interview with the Finn in English, it will not be as perfect as it is in Finnish. So choose the language that suits best you and the interviewee. Of course, we mentioned in Elina's thesis, you should, from an ethical perspective, ask also permission if you can record the interview. So I'm now going through the interview process. The things that you should be doing, asking permission if you can record the interviews. So write these very clearly. Maybe they sound like, they are very basic information, but they need to be shared that you have asked permission from an ethical perspective and received the permission and recorded the interviews for later transcribing. And even sometimes, to be more specific, share, with which device you recorded, feel free to share also such details. So when we talk about data, there are also secondary sources and primary sources. Well, we'll get into that in later on in more detail. But in the writing, I would like to see all the process, what you did, starting from choosing the interviewees until the end of the interview process. So everything should be under data collection. That is primary data collection. Also, for the secondary data collection, you should also present all the sources that you have used as secondary sources. Under data analysis, you will be presenting how you analyze the data. Especially in qualitative research, this remains a bit gray area. In the results chapter, we see some quotes from some interviews, some conclusions, but how from, let's say, the transcribed data, you come with the conclusions, with your findings, that should be explained. So for both qualitative and quantitative research, I will be presenting in the next session how analysis should be made. And here in the methodology chapter, you should describe the whole analysis process as clearly as possible. And I would suggest that you could there also use as one appendix an example sheet from your analysis, and I will tell you what kind of sheet I am meaning. Now, especially in quantitative analysis, we would be interested to see, okay, which were the variables and how did you measure those variables? So that is very important to explain under data analysis. So what were the variables and how did you measure those variables? Did you use some programs? So if you think about quantitative approach, did you use SPSS as a statistics package? In qualitative research, did you use, for example, NVivo Atlas for your analysis, or did you do the analysis using Word and Excel? That's what I'm going to show you, how you do the analysis with Excel. What did you use to transcribe the data? So did you use YouTube? So all these need to be explained under data collection and data analysis. Now, the last important thing is about verification of findings. Here I shared a saying from Silverman, who says that unless you can show your audience that the procedures you used to ensure that your methods were reliable and your conclusions valid, there is little point in aiming to conclude a research dissertation. Now, we need to convince our audience, the readers, that the procedures you used achieves reliable and valid conclusions. Now, what do we understand from validity and what do we understand from reliability? I'm going to now show you with a nice example. I'm just going to show it on the board over here. So let me see what is seen. Are we looking at the right place? I think we have one. My screen is kind of blocked. I can't do anything here. Well, I can't even go to. Is it because of the recording? Interesting. The screen is froze. What did I do? Sorry?
Try to cut out, delete, or put.
If I do Control Alt Delete,
Anything? Nothing?
nothing.
Nothing.
Oh my God. Any suggestions? Reliability and validity. Restart the video. Not responding. Oh my God. We got stuck at reliability and validity. Are they able to still see us? Check if the participants are there, but we got stuck now.
This is still high. Do you still see? Yeah. She can see you and she can hear you.
She can see me, she can hear me very well, but I am stuck. I can't do anything with the computer. Oh my God. We are under some cyber attack.
Okay. The screen is frozen now. Maybe from the maybe it's because of the.
I don't know what happened. Is it?
Okay.
Let's take the monitor away. Let's see if this helps. Let's see if this helps.
Yes.
No help. I think I should log out and log in again. I should turn off the computer. So hopefully, be patient. Don't run away. We'll be back. We'll be back soon.
Okay. I will build your speaker.
Hi, do you hear? Okay. So we are back. You can hear us. So the recording has been continuing, by the way. That's good. Back-end hearing is good. Thank you, Pia. That's good to hear. So let's continue. Let me check where this will be showing. I just want to show what I try to say about reliability and validity. Now you can see it. I'm not going to. So what we are talking about is probably you remember from, I don't know, your younger days, the case about darts. So we have this kind of a you see. So this is the dart table. Okay. And I start shooting. Okay. So if I were a reliable shooter, or reliability means that if I don't shoot, somebody else also shoots. Reliable means that you are shooting very consistently. So this shooting is quite reliable. However, it's not valid. Okay. Now I will show you another shooting style, which is valid but not reliable. So I'm shooting like this. So I know where the target is. I'm trying to get the target, but I'm not consistent. So this is valid but not reliable. This is very reliable but not valid. So the idea is that valid and reliable, you should be shooting here. Okay, so that's the idea. When it comes to research, how does that happen? How do we ensure validity and reliability? Let me check that this is still recording. Yes, it is. So let's get back to our presentation. I think I should keep pushing some things here, otherwise it gets frozen. So when we talk about validity, we talk about internal and external validity. So internal validity means, have you answered your research questions correctly? Okay. Remember, what is a thesis? The thesis is all about answering your, I may be repeating this, in different sessions, but it's good. It's not bad. It stays better maybe in our minds. The thesis is all about answering your research questions. So all your choices, including the literatures that you integrate into your literature review, the methodological choices you make, they should be targeting the center of your dart area. That is where you will find the answers to your research questions. Okay, so how do we assure that? So what is valid? If I'm looking into understanding the United Arab Emirates, the education possibilities for Finnish higher, middle, primary level institutions. So in that respect, if I'm going to do interviews, I should not be interviewing, I'm not even going to say Yao Ming or Hanna, but I should not be interviewing the oil and gas minister of United Arab Emirates. I should be interviewing the right people that would give me information about education possibilities in the country. So that would be ensuring internal validity, choosing the right persons to provide you the right answers. Okay? And when you write the verification of findings section, mention about these. Mention there that what should be based on the literature to assure internal validity, what should be taken care of, and how you took care of that in your context. So Montaser will be saying that to ensure validity, internal validity, we need to interview the right people who will give us the right answers to our research questions. And then he will say, I interviewed the education minister of the United Arab Emirates, a couple of key persons from different schools in the United Arab Emirates. So that will ensure internal validity. Now, the second validity is external validity. In qualitative research, generalizability has been criticized. Qualitative research does not aim to generalize. So the idea there is more to explore. So remember Elina's thesis, she had an exploratory approach. So the idea in qualitative research is not to generalize. And that has been mentioned by some of the authors in methodology literature. So use those to say that your aim in this research is not to generalize. You are not aiming to build a theory. You are aiming for bachelor's or for master's level thesis. The idea is to explore something deeply. So external validity, generalization to other contexts, this is something, of course, that you will be discussing in your discussion chapter. Can you generalize your findings? So Yao Ming's findings, suggestions from his company, are they only valid for his company, or can they be also beneficial for other companies? If other companies, what kinds of companies? So his company is in the manufacturing business in B2B context. Are they also valid for B2C context? Are they also valid for service companies? Are they valid for companies outside of Finland? So these are things that you will be discussing in the discussion chapter. Now, reliability. How do we ensure reliability in our research? Now, if you make an interview and during the interview you don't record the interview, you don't transcribe it, and then you come home and okay, you start to analyze your data. Okay, what was it that he said? He said this. Yes, it is this. Is this reliable? No. So mention that in order to ensure reliability, you recorded your interviews, you transcribed them, and you analyze the data that you read on document. So that ensures the reliability of your work. If some other researcher wants to conduct similar research, so that would be objective, that you have not only what is in your memory, but you have on paper all what has been discussed during the interview. Reliability is also about the sources. If you think about the secondary data, so when we talk about primary and secondary data, the difference is that if you personally have not collected the data, that's secondary. So what is available, accessible to anyone, is secondary data. What you go and collect via interviews, via survey, that's primary data. So for secondary data, did you use reliable sources? So if you take data from OECD, IMF, Finland Statistics Office, those are reliable sources. But if you go and take data from Wikipedia, that's not a reliable source. Mention these, that you used reliable sources to increase the reliability of your work, and you also recorded and transcribed the data in your interviews. Objectivity, that is the fourth element under verification of findings. Especially in qualitative research, there is always room for subjectivity because you will be interpreting the qualitative data. So if we have the same, I bet, if we have the same document which has been transcribed. So let's say Muntaser made the interview, transcribed the data, and he has the data. He makes his analysis. We don't see what conclusions he has come up with from the analysis. Then we ask Yao Ming, here is the data. Can you make an analysis? What do you come out with? And then we ask Hanna. I bet that there will be differences. So there is always room for subjectivity, and that has been accepted, and there is tolerance for that. And be honest, especially in the discussion chapter, that there may be this kind of subjectivity, but of course, you try your best to be as objective as possible. And to increase objectivity, what you use, there are some special techniques, we will look into that, like triangulation. You will be using sources, data from various sources. So sometimes even in secondary data, even if very reliable source, I find out that there are some mistakes in the numbers. So always checking from other sources, which we call triangulating the sources, that helps to increase reliability and objectivity. And if you happen to have some questions, you may always go back to ask further questions from the interviewee. At that moment, you may not be sure about your interpretation. One way to increase objectivity would be to contact again the interviewee and ask, okay, here, did you really mean what I understand? So this is basically all what is expected from you in the methodology chapter. Something about 8-10 pages, looking into the research approach, the research context, data collection, data analysis, and verification of findings. That's your methodology chapter. And here we see the, I need to make this like this, that I can see myself. Here in your assessment criteria, we have this thesis implementation and results. So this is how we make the assessment. Description of the research methods, looking at the grade of 5, the development research methods are described diversely and thoroughly. Decisions are justified critically. I don't know what means innovatively. Don't be very innovative, but critical. Why you make the choice, why it suits your objectives better, and with application of the knowledge base, so methodological knowledge base. How you use the research method, the data collection, data we see two things, the collection and also the use of the collection method. So how you write, that's the first part. So the data collection is described diversely and thoroughly, justified critically, same comments. So be critical, that is the important thing. And be critical doesn't mean that you criticize everything. So very good example of this would be the following. If you are doing qualitative research, do not start saying that qualitative research suits this research, this thesis, this study better because quantitative research is so bad. You know, don't start to criticize quantitative research. Don't start to tell why it doesn't suit your case, because your job here is to tell us why qualitative research suits better. So you need to hear, the idea is not to be, you know, nailing down the unsuitable ones, but here you should be more telling us about why your selected approach suits better. And in the methodology chapter, if you are using qualitative approach, if you are using case study method, don't write anything about other methods. Okay? Focusing means focus on what you have selected. I don't want to read a book on methodology. Okay? Sometimes it happens. Some students write the methodology chapter. It reads like a methodology book. You know, when you read it, it feels like, okay, this you need to do, that you need to do. It looks like a methodology book, including everything what has not been selected in the research approach. So be focused on the approach method that you have selected. Go deep in that approach. Don't write about other approaches. Okay? So how it is used, and then we have also the section about data analysis. Being critical, being diverse, those are the important criteria for getting a higher grade on the methodology chapter. Colette, I heard that you have some questions. Let's go and see. Hi, Colette, you can write down your questions. You said that you have said to Muntaser, as I heard from him, that you have some questions.
Okay, sir. This meaning that she have a lot.
Okay. Okay, we'll hear about your questions at some point. Okay, feel free to type. So now what I will do is I will move on to how to do the empirical study.